I am on page 8 of your reading workbook. This is still part of practice 2. It says to read the passage, then answer questions 7 through 12. Again, the paragraphs are numbered. This time we have 5 paragraphs. And this one is called Traveling Old School. In 1972, life was very different than it is today. Things were different, and some might say simpler. I'm not sure I would completely agree. When our family was traveling on vacation in our 9-passenger station wagon and the car broke down in the middle of nowhere, I think a cell phone would have been very helpful. It certainly would have made the search and rescue much easier. Back then, we were trailblazers. We just got in the car with a trusty map and went on our way. There was no global positioning system, GPS, to guide us, and no easy way to contact friends and family in case of an emergency. Sometimes we really threw caution to the wind and didn't even bring a map. It wasn't uncommon to stop at a gas station and ask for directions. I tried that recently, and the attendant had no idea how to direct me to get to a major bridge that I later found out was less than 5 miles from the gas station. When our car broke down in 1972, I was elected to walk to the nearest house and ask for help. I can't imagine suggesting my children do that today. Never mind the potential dangers involved, my children do not walk anywhere. I recently challenged my oldest daughter to try going old school. She was traveling cross-country by car, and I suggested she use a map and plan out her trip. I thought it was important she learn how to read a map because I thought cell phone service could be spotty in remote places. She was excited about the idea. She's my adventurous one. In an effort to be a responsible parent, I took my daughter to a local travel agency, and they provided her with a trip map. They gave her a booklet with a summary of her trip in detail. It included every road, every highway, every important feature. Of course, her trusty map could not tell her what the traffic would be like when she reached a particular destination, or the time it would take her to arrive at a destination like her phone could, but she was armed with all she needed for a successful trip. Unfortunately, her co-pilot didn't share my daughter's sense of adventure. She wanted to use her cell phone to navigate their trip. And often as they traveled, the cell phone and the map gave differing directions. My daughter informed me that the cell phone won because the directions it provided took recent construction and road closures into account. So much for old school. The old days may have been simpler, meaning less hectic, but they were not simpler, meaning easier. The use of cell phones, GPS devices, and computers is commonplace, and these devices have made our lives easier to manage. Today, if my car broke down, one push of a button on my cell phone would result in a speedy rescue. That's much easier than walking almost a mile to knock on a stranger's door to ask for a wire clothes hanger to reattach a muffler that fell off down the road. Now that was old school. Okay, page 9. What is the main idea of paragraph 2? The good old days were not so good. People did not always have technology to aid with travel. People were more daring years ago than they are today. Many people today do not have a good sense of direction. Again, we're looking at paragraph 2. And this one is focusing on the fact that there was no global positioning system to guide us. They had a trusty map, or sometimes not a map. It wasn't uncommon to stop at a gas station and ask for directions. So this one is focusing on, let me zoom in. B. The paragraph is talking about what it was like to travel before technology came along. So this one is B. Which detail from the passage best supports the idea that most people did not have cell phones in 1972? So we're focusing on cell phones in 1972. There was no global positioning system to guide us, and no easy way to contact friends and family in case of an emergency. When our car broke down in 1972, I was elected to walk to the nearest house for help. I thought it was important she learn how to read a map because I thought cell phone service could be spotty in remote places. Well, that one's out because it's not talking about 1972. So if you see one that you can eliminate, go ahead and eliminate it. The old days may have been simpler, meaning less hectic, but they were not simpler, meaning easier. Again, we're looking for support for our idea that people did not have cell phones in 1972. And that one's going to be A. There was no easy way to call for help if you needed it. The key here is contact. That would be associated with a cell phone. Number 9. What is the main idea of paragraph 4? Although maps show roads and features, they do not provide arrival times like cell phones are able to do. It is important to see a travel agent when planning a road trip. Technology often has advances that provide better results than non-technological methods. Young Americans are unable to use a road map and will always be dependent on cell phones for navigation. And we're looking at paragraph 4. So he took his daughter to the travel agent. They gave her a booklet with a summary of her trip, but her friend chose to use the cell phone. And the daughter informed the dad that the cell phone won. There's the clue. Because it provided better directions, road closures, that sort of thing. So main idea is that they tried both ways, but the cell phone won. And so I'm liking C, I believe, on this one. Technology has advances that provide better results than the non-technology means. All right. What did people in 1972, let me try that again. What did people do in 1972 to aid them with travel? They used their cell phones to navigate. Not in 1972. I can eliminate that one. They asked other people for directions. They searched for directions on computers. Not in 1972. They relied on GPS to give them directions. Not in 1972. So the only viable option here is B. They asked other people. Which supporting detail would best fit in paragraph 5? According to a Pew Research poll, 96% of Americans own a cell phone of some kind today. Cell phones were first introduced to the public in the 1980s so people could talk while driving. Martin Cooper made the first cell phone call on April 3rd, 1973. Or Albert Einstein said, "The human spirit must prevail over technology." So we need to look back at paragraph 5. And this one talks about the old days may have been less hectic, but they were not easier. The technology today is much more convenient. It helps us to get things done faster. So let's see which one of these could fit in there. Excuse me. I really don't like any of these, but A is going to be the closest. We are not concerned with the history of cell phones here, nor the person who made the first call, even though that's an interesting fact. I did not know that. And Einstein, I agree with his statement, but it does not support what paragraph 5 is saying. Albert Einstein said that the human spirit would be more important than technology. Paragraph 5 is really saying the opposite, that technology is the thing that makes life easier. Number 12. What is the best summary of the passage? Now, before I read those, let me remind you of what summary means. Summary means that every one of these is accounted for. When you summarize, you have to get all of the details included. If you leave some of them out, it's not a summary. So let's take a look. Before modern technology, people had to rely on maps to travel from place to place. They didn't have cell phones and GPS. Technology has made many aspects of life, like traveling, easier to manage today. I like that one. That one's a good possibility. But read them all. Never make a decision until you've looked at all the choices. More people should learn how to use maps. Cell phones and GPS are not always reliable. Technology has helped make people's lives easier, but it is still important to have basic map reading skills. Well, was that whole story about maps? Would you say, if I ask you in one or two words, let's say one word, what that story was about, the whole thing, would you say maps? Okay, let's keep going. Life was much simpler in 1972. People didn't rely on technology as much as they do today. Technology has its benefits, but people may have become too dependent on it. That's a lot of opinion right there. B is also a lot of opinion. It's what someone believes about something. C doesn't talk about cell phones or GPS or even maps. They're just throwing out an opinion. Because of technology, people no longer have to stop and ask for directions or ask for help when they have car problems. Well, that's true to some degree, but this story was about a lot more than just car problems and asking for directions. I like A. A is factual. It gives me facts and not someone's opinion about something. And if you're reading informational texts, you want something that's factual, not what someone believes about something necessarily. Because what I believe and what you believe may not be the same thing, and neither of us is wrong. But when you're looking for information, you want factual information, and that is called empirical data. Let me just go ahead and spell that word for you, because that's an important word. Factual is often based on empirical data. studies and research. It's not what I think, it's what I know based on research. Okay, is that all of them? I believe it is. So here's the second passage for this lesson, and that brings us to the end of this lesson. In our next video, we'll be learning a new skill. It's actually not a new skill, it's related to main idea, but we'll be focusing more on the details part of main idea and details.